Hello, we're going to start section 4.3 now. And again, we've broken this up into two parts, part A and part B. Today we're doing part A, okay? And it's solving quadratic equations by factoring. And what we're going to do today is we're not actually going to solve, we are just going to factor, okay? We've got to practice that. So what does it mean to factor, okay? It means break into smaller parts. For example, 12 is 3 times 4. 3 and 4 are factors of 12. 18 is 2 times 9, so 2 times 9 are factors of 12s. 3 times 6 are factors of 18. 2 times 9, 18. 3 times 6, 18. And 18 equals 18 times 1. Okay, so those are all factors of 18. So, first thing is factor out common term. And to do that, I wrote the directions over here on the left side. Okay, right over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to find all common factors. We're going to move those factors out front. We're going to divide that from each term, and the result is what's left in parentheses. Okay? So if you need to take a moment to stop the video and write that down, that's great. But I'm going to keep going here. Okay, so what I do is I have 5n squared minus 6n to the third. So 5n squared, I'm going to write it as 5 times n minus 2 times 3 times n times n times n. Okay, and I look at what they have in common, and they both have 2 n's in common. I got 2 n's there, and I've got 2 n's there. Okay, so I move that out front. So I'm going to move n times n out front, and in parentheses I put what's left over. But I'm not going to write n times n. Okay, what I'm going to write is n squared. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken that n times n, and I've moved that out front, and then what's left over here is the 5 from there, and the 2 times 3, and the n from there. So the result is 5. We've got a minus sign, so that minus sign stays. 2 times 3 is 6, and n. And this is factored. Okay? I have n squared times 5 minus 6n. Two things that multiply to give me 5n squared minus 6n to the third. Okay? We're going to do the same thing here. 15. 3 times 5 times y times y times y minus 9 times y, oh, not 9, sorry, factors. 3 times 3 times y times y. Okay? So I go back and I say, what do they have in common? Well, they both have a 3, and they each have 2 y's again. Okay? So I'm going to take that 3, and I'm going to take those 2 y's, and I'm going to move those out front. Okay, so this orange represents the orange that's inside each one of those terms. Then I look at what's left over. This term has a 5 and a y, and this just has a 3. So the answer is going to be 5y minus 3. 3y squared, 5y minus 3. Okay. 25b squared minus 20b to the third. Okay? So again, I'm just going to, if you can do this without writing it out, that's fine. Maybe you just know that both terms have a 5 in them, and both terms have 2 b's. Okay, but I'm going to write it out. I'm going to say that 5 is in common with that 5. Okay, the 4 and the 5, they can't come out, but there's 2 b's and there's 2 b's. So I have a 5 from the first, 5b squared gets out. I'm left with a 5 minus 4b. And that's my answer. Okay? Now, sometimes we don't have anything in common. There's nothing in common to z squared, 13z, and 22. So in this case, we're going to try and factor it by setting up into double parentheses. Okay, we're going to do the opposite of FOILing. So before we've done this, x plus 2 times x minus 6. Let's go x plus 2, x plus 6. We went x times 6 is x squared. X times 6 is 6x. 2 times x is 2x. And 2 times 6 is 12. And then we put those two things together, x squared plus 8x plus 12. Okay? So if I look at that 2 and the 6, okay, 2 plus 6 equals 8, and 2 times 6 equals 12. So that's what we're going to look at. I'm going to find two numbers, okay, that multiply to C that add to B. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say we're going to multiply to 22 and we're going to add to 13. Okay, well 22 is 22 times 1. So I got to check 22 plus 1. Does that equal 13? No, it does not. So another factors of 22 are 11 times 2. 11 plus 2, that does equal 13, so it's going to be 11 and 2. So I'm going to say z and z, okay? And then we've got a positive 11 and a positive 2, so it's z plus 11 times z plus 2. Now for this first example, I'm just going to check my work. Okay, I'm going to say z times z, z squared. Z times 2 is 2 of those z's. Then I go to the 11. 11 times z is 11z. And I go 11 times 2 is 22. So it's z squared plus 13z plus 22. So my answer works. Okay, so in this case, the answer is going to be z plus 11, z plus 2. Okay. So we'll do the same thing here. I need to multiply to 20. I need to add to a negative 12. Now, adding to a negative 12, okay, means we must have some negative numbers in there. Okay, so let's think about this for a second. Let's take 4 times 5. Okay, well, 4 plus 5 is 9. Okay, but I need my number to be negative here. You'll notice that right here we've got a negative 12. So then what I can do is I can say, well, negative 4 times negative 5 also equals 20, and negative 4 plus negative 5 equals negative 9. Okay, so that's how I introduce that negative in there. Okay, but how do we multiply to 20 and get to a negative 12? Okay, well, 10 times 2. Okay, 10 times 2 is 20. 10 plus 2 is 12. If I make them both negative, okay, negative 10 plus negative 2, that equals negative 12, and negative 10 times 2 equals a positive 20. So I know my answer is going to be y and y, and then it's negative 10 and negative 2. Okay. Multiply to a negative 18, add to a positive 3. Okay? In order to multiply to a negative number, one factor is positive, one is negative. Okay, so I look at negative 18. Well, let's look at 18 times 1 first. Okay, if I say negative 18 times 1, that's negative 18. Negative 18 plus 1 is negative 17. So I know 18 and 1 is not going to work. Okay, I could try negative 9 times 2. Negative 9 plus 2. Well, negative 9 plus 2 is negative 7, and I want it to be a 3. So I know negative 9 and 2 don't work. I could take negative 6 times 3. Okay, that equals negative 18. Negative 6 plus 3, well, that's negative 3. Okay, well, I want this thing to be a positive 3, not a negative 3. So I've got the 3. I'm going to have made a mistake when I wrote this down here. That should be a negative 3. Okay, well, I've got the 3. The 3 is okay. It's just that I want this to be a positive 3, and this is a negative 3. So all I got to do is change the sign. Instead of negative 6 times 3, I can take 6 times negative 3. 6 plus negative 3, that is 3. And there we have it. Okay, it's x and x. I've got a positive 6, and I've got a negative 3. And there we go. 4.3a.